I'm not so sure about torture, but I know when I criticized Tony Blair, he stopped talking to me. I think that was a blessing.
I don't mind calling Gaddafi not talking to me, as long as he allows me to criticize him.
And he avoided me, and I was hoping that I'd demonstrate on Friday morning when he appears before the inquiry, but I'm going to be somewhere enjoying my sunshine for this winter. Oliver.
Well, I don't know that I've got much to add. I agree very much with what Jamal was saying. I think some of the speakers are, well, perhaps I show my bias because I spent my professional life as a diplomat, and if you're a diplomat, you have to work with what you've got. You can't say, well, let's have a different system and start again. You have to start from where you are. One speaker talked about the need to reform the United Nations, to pass power from the Security Council to the General Assembly. Another speaker talked about the difference between moral and legal standards. Is it hypocritical to be talking only about law? Should we be talking about morality? You have to do both. You have to first of all, you have to deal with the power situation as it exists. You have to, you can by all means set about trying to reform or change the United Nations, but that's going to take a long time, and meanwhile these other problems are not going to be solved.
We start now, then we might do something.
Well, if you want to do something about it, you're welcome to try. People have been trying for a long time. I'm not a great believer in reforming the United Nations myself. I think the United Nations is a useful instrument as it exists now. What I do agree very much is, and Jamal was making this point, is that you have to avoid being hypocritical in the sense that you can't simply criticize people you regard as your enemies and fail to criticize your friends. You've got to criticize them, and you've got to criticize your own government as well when that's appropriate.
Thank you, and I was very much interested in your earlier comments in relation to the legal advice and the illegal action by our own government, and it was the vehicle that was used was the United Nations, so I think we probably can have a debate on that. Because we're going to run out of time, so this is going to be last round of the 4 hands that are up and no more. So if I can take this lady here, then this lady over there, and the gentleman at the back, and of course.
Hi, it's Roy Arab Institute of Archaeology. It's really interesting when you think that Libya was actually ostracized because of its support of PLO, non-alignment with the USA, and then because of the USSR. 20 odd years later or more, they're back in the fold again because of the massive pressure from the oil companies. They have more than 3% of the oil of the world. They've also the fall of the USSR and for counter-terrorism. Now what's interesting is that very likely that Libya will be breaking more laws in helping counter-terrorism in terms of human rights laws, counter-terrorism with its new allies, the West, then it is quite a twisted story. And then when the gentleman from there said that lots of Africans are being very maltreated, only a few years ago, maybe 2 years ago, Italy signed a deal with Libya where they said, we will give you 5 billion for retribution for millions that we killed in your country, or hundreds of thousands in the 1912s, and also in order to help us with stopping migration. So it's really interesting. We're sitting here talking about Libya, abuses of human rights, and we're going to be contributing to it. Italy, by making that deal and saying, get rid of those Africans, we don't want them here, is complicit. I think we should really, this hypocrisy business, every time, Lord Ahmed, I come here, the hypocrisy is the word that comes back more and more strongly.
But thank you for continuing to come, because unless we expose that hypocrisy, nobody else is going to talk about it. So at least we are still talking. The lady with the red.
It's me, sorry, I'm Amal. I'm a former lecturer in international law and human rights, and I'm aware actually of Garib's family suffered since 1980s in Libya. My question basically was to Tom, but Tom not here. Maybe Dayachi can answer my question. Basically, we are aware that Gaddafi has always been beneficial to the West, and we are wondering, does Amnesty International or Human Rights Watch knows, the reason behind Saif Islam's Gaddafi welcome to the report to be published in Tripoli?
Gentleman at the back.
Khairi Bushagur, originally Libyan. I've been living in this country for 30 years. I mean, I find it odd and bizarre, to be honest, to have this conference in January 2010. I thought it would have been more appropriate being held 30 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 10 years ago.
We did have some conferences
I know,
8 years
yes,
ago, 7 years ago.
4 years ago, it was a very close group. I think there are a lot of colluders, lots of collusion that was responsible for this, including many, but I think the main and most important colluder in this is the Libyan history, Libyan society, and Libyan culture, Libyan people themselves. Because Gaddafi, when he came to power, Libyans wholeheartedly embraced him. And after that, whatever Gaddafi did, he was able, from within the culture, from within Islam, from within slogans, he was able to proceed unhindered. And I think if we are looking for the future, not for the past, because I've been hearing today only about the past, not the future, it's the society, the culture, and I think we had a very good example in the region, in the Arab world, in the form of President Bourguiba, who died about 15 years ago, I think, when he created a secular society, and he was able to keep religion separate. And I think if we are going to proceed for the whole region, this is the must, this is the priority.
Thank you for your comments, my lady.
Thank you. It's the privileged veto, surely, is the essence of our problem here, judging by what this gentleman said here and what this gentleman said here too. If you have a privileged veto in the UN, you can't possibly have any human rights, because they dictate the terms of what will be terrorists and what will be freedom fighters. So this picks up on what Riyad said. If the Security Council can be independent of a privileged veto, we start to have independence from the Zionist entity, as Ibn Saud warned us, would create all of these conflicts, and most of the conflicts we're talking about are as a consequence of the pirating of Palestine and the absolutely criminal state that needn't exist, because, and I run a campaign about it, there is a first Jewish homeland in Birobidzhan. It's been peacefully set up since 1928. It is still there to receive the European Jews. And there was no need morally or in any sense after 1945 for those people to pirate Palestine. And this is the issue that we don't want to face, and the privileged veto arises from this nonsense.
Thank you very much. I think we've got one answer that Diana is going to give to your question, and then I'm going to ask, just summing up a couple of minutes, because did you want to ask a question?
That's okay.
Okay. Diana.
I mean, just as a general point to the debate, an organization like Amnesty International documents reports and campaigns on human rights violations no matter where they take place, whether it's in the US or in Libya or elsewhere in the world. And in relation to counterterrorism and Libya's complicity in it, it's well documented that the US has transferred at least 6 individuals in around 2005 to 2007 back to Libya, who are to date in Abu Slim prison. Their legal status is not clear. It's not clear whether they have been tried or charged with any crime, tried. Well, their families don't have access to them. One of them has committed suicide in circumstances where there has been no independent investigation. So we do urge the UK, the US, and any other government not to send Libyan nationals back where they might face a risk of torture and other human rights violations. In response to Aman's question, I mean, it's difficult for me to speculate why Saif al-Islam would allow Human Rights Watch to have a conference in Libya. I mean, I think it is a testament that Libya is a little bit more open to international scrutiny of its human rights record, and it's a positive development. But what is important is to ensure that this is sustainable, that Libyan nationals who criticize the system are not at risk of being punished, and that these openings translate into real change in policy and practice and the law, rather than just a change in Libya's international image and welcome back into the international community.
Thank you, Diana. I'm going to go back to Yusuf to say a few words, or summing up words, and then Juma, if he wants to say a few words as well. But first, Yusuf.
I apologize for earlier. We've gone through a lot, and it's just, I just want to show you guys that so many people are affected with the disappearances. And it's really important that we got to do something to stop these in the future, and do whatever we can to get the people out, find out what the fate of my father is. I don't know if my father is dead, alive. I just want to know. Is that too much to ask, really?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.